Well, if you're working in the commercial area or on relatively large scale projects, perhaps working for a local authority, then you are likely to have to work to some sort of drafting standard. Here's an example. If I go to sheet 2, I've moved from model space into layout space, and if I click on the title around here, you can see it sits inside the sheet. The height of text and information that you put in that text is often dictated by the drafting standard that you are working to. Most countries have a drafting standard and will specify what goes on a sheet such as this. We're operating here in layout space, so our text heights and line thicknesses and so on need to be set appropriately for the size sheet. What I'm going to do now is turn to a gCADPlus drawing on an A2 sheet and talk briefly about the drafting standards for the country which I'm working at the moment, which is Australia. Well, let's take the example of an A2 sheet. The drafting standard, if we zoom in down here, says the paper size for A2 is 594 by 420, and the drafting standard said you should have a 10mm offset, leaving that 10mm all the way around, and it defines the space in which to portray the design as 574 by 400. If I zoom in, firstly let's select the rectangle that defines the sheet, and there's the width, 494 by 420. So the red rectangle on the screen shows the drawing sheet. The Australian standard says you must have a grid across. Let me zoom in on part of the grid. So it's the grid numbers 1 to 2 down, and then A, B, C, D, E, and so on across to the right. What that enables you to do is to, when you're talking to someone about a design, you can be referring to a particular coordinate. It might be H6, and that will locate you to a particular point on the design. But importantly, your drawing sheet, and remember this is the information that goes into layout space, your country drafting standard might do something like this. It'll say the text in the drawing sheet, sorry, let me get back down here. For an A2 sheet, we are to have a final print height of 5mm, 3.5mm, 2.5, and we might get away with using 1.8mm high final on the layout sheet. So if you're working 1 to 100, not 1 to 00, but 1 to 100 in model space, you need to have your text height set at 500, 350, 250 and 180 in order to achieve the standard. Now the standard is not set to irritate you, it just means if you stick to that standard, all people viewing the design, viewing the drawings, will be able to read the text. And a system that one of our gCADPlus users has developed is to have a title block like this that sits inside the drawing, and he turns all of this area here into a block, and then within the block puts some text in just a colour by layer on whatever colour the title block is set at, but in green those parts of the title block information that will need to be edited with each job. So clearly there'll be a client name, title, location, line 1, 2 and 3 and so on. The information or the text in green will change in different layout sheets, but the information, title, client, copyright notice and so on will stay the same. So he develops little title blocks like that sit inside the sheet. So this title block and drawing sheet here matches the Australian drafting standards. So it's a good idea to develop something like this. It'll be very useful in doing designs for large broad scale and corporate work. If you're working in residential design, you might want to do away with a lot of this information and just do a very compact title block in the corner of your sheet, and perhaps have this sort of information hidden on a layer that you can then hide. So I hope that helps just a little in understanding how title block information has to be set up in some instances.